We seen Miami Heat's big three. Then it was the Golden State Warrior dynasty with the addition of Kevin Durant. Then it was Brooklyn Nets big three with Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and James Harden. Wait. Let me run that back. I don't think y'all heard the three names I said. Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. Not only are these three Hall of Famers, but they might be three of the most skilled NBA players we've ever seen. You know what? I'll even take it a step further and say they're three of the best one-on-one players we've ever seen in NBA history. All three on the same team. Now you might be wondering, how could they lose? The NBA is no stranger to super teams, but I think we're witnessing an end to an era, the super team era. Super teams in the NBA have been around forever. They go way back. You can go all the way back to the 90s or even the 80s, but I'll briefly just talk about some of the super teams from the 2000s and some of the more recent super teams we've seen. First, you got the 03-04 Lakers. That team included Kobe, Shaq, Gary Payton, and Karl Malone. This is one of those teams you look at and you be like, how did they get these four players together? But it was pretty simple. Karl Malone and Gary Payton were both at the tail end of their careers and no longer the superstars they once were in the NBA. But nonetheless, they were still very productive and highly sought after players. This team ended up making it to the finals and lost to the Detroit Pistons. But I believe if these four were in their prime, with no egos involved, that finals might have looked a bit different. Then you got them boys in green, the Boston Celtics. Now we've seen a ton of good Boston teams, but the team we're talking about is the 07-08 Boston team. This team included Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett. It's obvious why this team was considered a super team. You look at those three players who, at one point, all number one options in their career. Then you look at the role players they had. They had Rondo, who was a Hall of Famer. Tony Allen, one of the best defenders we've ever seen. Kendrick Perkins, James Posey. Just a lot of good quality role players to complement the big three. This team was one of the more successful super teams we've seen, but they did not win multiple championships. They ended up winning one in 08 against the Los Angeles Lakers, but that was it. But I believe when LeBron James said his infamous quote,
"In this fall, man, it's very tough. In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat,"
is when the modern super team era began. That was the start of the real big three. And everybody know who I'm talking about when I say the real big three. The Miami Heat big three, also known as the Heatles. This team came about in the offseason of the 2010-2011 season. Their three superstars were D-Wade, LeBron, and Chris Bosh. Ironically enough, all of these three were drafted in the same draft class. Of course, LeBron was the number one pick, Bosh was the fourth, and Wade was the fifth. But this team came out the gate rolling, making the finals each year they were together, which didn't surprise nobody. You got Bron, who was top three, and maybe even the best player in the league at the time. D-Wade, who was top five shooting guard at the time, maybe even top three. Then Bosh, another top five at his position at the time. They had no choice but to win championships. It was either championship or bust. They ended up winning 2 championships in their 4 years together and would eventually split after the 2013-2014 season. Then came the Warriors. The Warriors were a little different. They built the core of their team up organically through the draft. Unlike a lot of the other teams I've mentioned, they won the 2015 NBA championship, and I believe this began their reign of dominance. The year after, they would break the record for the most wins in the NBA season, going 73-9, but they ended up losing in the finals. Then it happened. They added Kevin Durant, which took this team from a really good team to a super team. They won back-to-back championships and looked like the best team the NBA has ever seen. At this point, super teams had become the blueprint, and stars started linking up everywhere. Brooklyn, LA, Phoenix, Houston, all chasing that one goal, an NBA championship. But these super teams we've seen in the more recent years haven't been seeing the same type of success. Now, one might ask why, especially seeing how successful they were in the past. One reason being injuries, which I feel like now are inevitable. In today's NBA, we've seen a big spike in injuries. Why? I don't know. A lot of people have their own opinions about it. I won't get too much into that in this video, but we've seen a bunch of teams get plagued by injuries, like the Brooklyn Big Three with Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, who only played a whopping 16 games together, or even that Clippers team with Paul George and Kawhi. We seen how bad their injury history was. Then just recently we see the Suns team with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. It was like every time we watched them play, one of them wasn't playing, or two of them wasn't playing. They just were never on the court together. Another reason they're failing is chemistry, depth, and overall just bad fits. They burned through a lot of their draft picks and cap space, trading and paying numerous stars. This leaves them with no cap space to pay good role players. And in today's NBA with smarter defenses, load management, and parity, talent alone is just not enough, especially not enough to compete against well-coached teams. This is why I say super teams are dying. We're seeing a rise in the homegrown or organically made teams. Teams that draft smart and then just develop their young talent. Then they put a couple of good role players and vets around them to support. You look at this past year's NBA champions, or you could even take it a step further and look at the past 3 or 4 years. All of these teams that won the championship were organically made teams. You take a look at last year's champion, the OKC Thunder. OKC, they did not draft Shea, but they acquired him through trade. They believed in him and started building around him, drafting Jalen Williams and Chet, then surrounded them with a great supporting cast, mostly young players outside of Caruso and Hartenstein. This team is the second youngest NBA team to ever win a championship. Then you go back 2 years, you got the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics drafted and developed their two young stars, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and they provided some good vets around them to help get over the hump. Then you could take it back 3 years. You got Denver, who had a very similar story to Boston. They found a dynamic duo in Jokic and Murray, and then built around that, getting a bunch of vets and role players through trade, but also drafting some young players that they felt could contribute to their success. All of these teams not only have talent, but they had chemistry, role players, and they played together. This shift is showing that good NBA teams are starting to think more long term than just in the now. Fans love underdogs. They love watching their teams grow. I feel like this is good for the league. When the league is more open, every fan base has hope. We're in a golden era where anybody can win. It ain't no guaranteed finals matchups. You're not gonna see Boston versus Lakers. No super team, no super villain squads. Just great basketball. So, are super teams done for good, or we see a rise again? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you miss the super team era, or are you liking the new era? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on post notifications. We got more NBA content on the way for sure.